And welcome back. We are going today and continue to enhance this sprite that we had done before by adding a few more textures and outlines to different things that we've done. Now we had of course created a basic outline that we had before, so let's start with addressing that here today. Now before, when we had talked about this, we said that we have, for example, these different shadows here. Now most of these shadows are coming, looks like from above here with most of these, which means that if I had a sun in here, if I had some kind of light source, that means it's probably radiating down in this direction here. So this means that this we would expect to be much lighter, and that kind of matches with some of the color tones that we have going on here, versus if we had the sun, for example, coming in from this direction, it would be a much different story. All right, and so of course we'd have our colors shift to represent this area being brightest, these areas being darker. Now let's go ahead and then add some different things here with our outline. So what I'm going to do to get started is I'm first going to use my eyedropper tool, and let's go ahead and click on the darkest brown that we had before. And that should go ahead and bring that color back up to us. And if I just go ahead and trace over that outline, all right, it will of course go ahead and do that. Now the one thing is you'll notice is that because this matches the same color here, it doesn't necessarily help us very much with the overall shape. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to Control Z here, and I'm actually going to go ahead and create a new layer. And let's go ahead and rename this as Outline. And then let's go ahead now and just go ahead and trace that same area that we had just done. All right, and so what this allows us to do is it allows us to toggle that. So if we need to make changes in the future, for example, let's say we had the light area coming over here, it allows us to keep that area isolated so we're not affecting the overall image. And now that that outline is created, we can of course do other things, like for example, we can adjust the opacity a little bit. So for example, if I bring that opacity down on this layer now, you can see that it actually will get darker. If I bring it up, it'll actually get lighter. So if we, of course, bring the opacity to, let's say, around 50%, you can see it is quite dark. But if I take it around, let's say, 74 here, you can see we still get a dark effect here, but it doesn't necessarily match the tone of what we're necessarily going with, but it does work for this outline. So I'm actually going to bring that down a little closer. Let's go about 65. That looks pretty good. And now let's go ahead and create another layer here. And then we're going to go ahead and rename this layer to call it Shadows and Textures. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and reset our brush to the black and white options. And the first thing I'm going to do is I want to go ahead and just randomize some color options in here. So what I want to do is create shadows. And since the sun is coming down this way, it means I'm probably going to have some shadows effectively coming down off of certain things in certain directions. So for example, I might have a shadow here. I may have some shadows over here with certain things. And it's okay. You don't necessarily have to put them this way, but it could be just different ways of showing different things of how these different pieces are coming in. It's okay that right now they're kind of painting over different spots within this canvas, because again, we're going to go ahead and do some changes here. So even if you just kind of randomly put some different pieces in here, you're like, I'm going to some strokes here, maybe I'm going to put a stroke here, that's okay. Now, this of course will help darken areas, but we also are going to want to lighten areas as well. So I'm going to go ahead and switch this to white. And let's go ahead and paint some white on top of some of these zones. And sometimes those zones are going to be the opposite of where we just had our shadows. So we're going to go ahead and just paint some white in here to go ahead and fill some of those spots in. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It can be a little random. The idea is you're going to help break up this large chunk here of wood to really kind of help give some more realistic depth and measurement. And now, again, same thing as we did before. Let's go to our opacity here. And we're just going to go ahead and move that slider down. So let's take it just to about 50% here, just so you can see the effect. And you can see how those colors before, where they're black and white, are now blending in such a way that you can start seeing those other colors come through. Now 50% is not quite enough, so let's actually take it down a little bit more. Let's take it down to about 30% here, just to really kind of see the effect we've done. And now you can see that at this point, these layers are starting to really blend here. We're really starting to get some different tones going on. but I'm going to take it down just a little bit more. Let's go down now to about 20%. And we can really appreciate now how the blending of those colors is breaking up these different zones. And that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that about at 20%. You can adjust the values for your image based on how you want them to be. And now we have a much more dynamic image here. Last thing I want to do though is add a shadow. And this is going to be the true shadow here of the image. So this is where things are going to be underneath the image. So for example, if we go back to our light source and the sun is coming directly down from above in this direction, then how can we get the shadow to appear? Well, if the sun is right here from above, the shadow should pretty much be directly underneath this. If it is coming from this way on the left, then our shadow will lean to left. So I'm just going to grab our marquee tool real quick here to show this. So I'm going to go ahead and make a rectangular marquee selection. And you can see right now it's pretty equally divided between the areas here. So this would work really well if I had a light source coming straight down from above. Or for example, if I had a light source that is coming from the right, then I would simply just move this marquee selection to the right to show that that shadow is going to that direction to show with the sun. If the sun is coming from the other side, then obviously we just slide the selection to the other way. It's pretty simple, straightforward process, but again, it adds another layer to our image. Now, of course, I have this selection here, so let's just go ahead and find a nice gray. Doesn't matter what we have here, just make a gray. And I'm going to go ahead and use my paint bucket tool to go ahead and fill that in. Now, of course, you can see right now mine is over top of my crate, which doesn't do much good. So I want to make sure I drag that underneath my crate here. And you can see now this is underneath my crate. I can deselect this, and I could even come through and say, you know, I want to clean this up. I want to make it look even more realistic. So I might, of course, for example, grab my eraser tool, and I might say, you know, I want to clean some of these corners off here just a little bit, just to kind of really add some more dimension to this. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we've gone ahead and created our very first crate here, our very first object with a lot of different textures, a lot of different shadows that we can do. And let's keep those ideas in mind as we move forward into making additional sprites and animations.